Hey, it's Lauren. So you might be wondering about the hair. I'm feeling super glamorous after spending like a year in yoga pants. So I've been playing with roller sets and like feeling the whole like roaring 20s vibe, whatever. Anyway, today we're going to talk about a Canadian brand called Phytosurgence. They are a small but growing indie brand that I have been trying their products out for the last few months. And I've got about 6 now. So I feel like I have enough and I have a good grasp on the brand to where I feel comfortable giving a review of it. So this is, like I said, kind of a new to me brand. They have a variety of makeup products and skincare products. I personally have not tried the skincare. I have only stuck with the makeup so far. But I think it's a very reasonably priced brand. Everything that I have it ranges from $16.72 to $25.47 in price. So it's very, very affordable, especially given the performance. So I'm going to start off with the Flash Fluorescent creams. I have 3 of them. I have Potent Petal, which is like this beautiful kind of peachy pink color. I have the shade Deeply Rooted, which is like honestly one of the most unique eyeshadow colors I've probably ever used, where it's like kind of got this brown, but it's got this blue shift. And when you sheer it out, it has like a red undertone. It's really, really unique. And the last one, my most recent shade, is Wild Oak, which is like this beautiful kind of bronzy taupe color. It has a very pretty gold sheen. So I'm going to play with those on my eyes today. I'm kind of debating what colors I want to do. I think I'm going to do a combination that I did the other day that I really enjoyed, which was using Wild Oak. And I personally like using my fingers for application with this. You can definitely use like a brush to kind of get in there and blend out if you want, but I think that this plays really nicely with the warmth of your fingertips. And so what I did the other day was I took Wild Oak and I put it all over kind of my inner corner and lid space and just really blended it out and made it a really soft diffusion of color. And then I kind of left the outside bare because I go in with the shade Deeply Rooted, which looks really, really cool. So what's really amazing about these creams is they're a very thin kind of formula, but they have a decent color payoff and they don't budge. Once you get them on, they are going to stay with you all day. There's very minimal creasing, which is pretty impressive for a cream shadow. Most of the time you'll end up with some creasing. I have almost none when I am going to wash this off at the end of the day. It's honestly bizarre. I don't feel like that's really how most cream shadows wear. So now I'm going to take this shade Deeply Rooted, and I'm also going to use my fingers for this. I might end up going back in with a brush. But these almost have like a powder finish when they start drying down. So I want you to look at that color. It's like it has the most interesting translation when you start working with it. I also love that on their website, they use a model with a deeper skin tone to show their products, because they do look quite different than they do if you're like myself and you have somewhat fair skin, but they're equally beautiful. And I think it's really, really cool kind of what they're doing with their brand. Their level of inclusivity in their campaigns, I think, is really, really great. So look at the depth and dimension of that. It's really, really pretty and it's really easy to use. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this small synthetic brush and get a little bit of pigment on there and then put it underneath my lash line. I think the shade, they're all beautiful one and done shadows, but I think Deeply Rooted is a really unique shade because as you blend it out, you start seeing this kind of like multi-dimensional effect with it. And I'm going to do that on this side. Okay, I just think that is like such a pretty combination. It has this warmth, it has this depth. It's not overly heavy, but it kind of gives this sultry effect. I just think that these are so beautiful. Let me swatch them on my arm so you can get an idea and a kind of a comparison of the colors, especially since I didn't use Potent Petal. Okay, so there is Potent Petal, Wild Oak, and Deeply Rooted, which is just like the most interesting kind of color. It has so much dimension. So now I'm gonna roll into the Skin Sparks, which I have two of. I have the shade Singe, which was the first one that I purchased, which is this like kind of fresh, happy pink. And then I purchased the shade Smolder, which is like something that is totally unlike everything else that I had in my kit. But I had been reading Kevin Aquan's book, Making Faces, which if you have never read it and you love makeup, I highly, highly recommend picking it up. I think that it has information in it and techniques and styles that still are relevant and really just timeless beauty and kind of transcend decades and trends in general. So I'm going to use a MAC 132S brush, and I'm going to use the shade Smolder. And I think that this shade is just so unique and flattering. And very similarly to the Flash Fluorescence creams, a little goes a long way with these, and they go on the skin and they're somewhat thin feeling. They don't feel like super thick and heavy or overly balmy, and they stay put for most of the day, but you still get an incredible amount of pigment when you barely even tap your brush in. I mean, like there's just like a whisper of color on here. But I personally, I love this shade on me. I think sometimes when you get this kind of like burnt apricot color, it can kind of scare people because they don't want their cheeks to read orange most of the time. But like I said, I was reading the Kevin Aquan Making Faces book, and he used like an apricot blush on one of the looks, and I was like, that is so stunningly beautiful. I don't have anything like that. Phytosurgence makes something like that, so I love this shade. I love the warmth that that color gives, and it doesn't necessarily steal the show or compete with the rest of my makeup too much. And, you know, I highly recommend, if you ever feel just kind of in a rut with your makeup, pick a color that you may have never chosen before, and I think you'll be so, so happy with it. So I'm going to show you swatches of these next to each other as well. So since I didn't use Singe on my cheeks, I'm going to do a swatch of that for you. And like, it's like real pigmented. They blend out so nicely though. Look at that. So easy. And then we'll do Smolder right next to it. So creamy. Look at that. Look how pigmented that is. I just barely even tapped my finger in it. That's why I really like using a brush with these, because when you start blending them out, they just look so soft. I'll wipe this off my arm because I'm wearing a white dress and I really don't want to ruin it. You will see though, the Flash Fluorescence creams, they take some elbow grease to get off. Like I said, they don't budge once you get them on. Always make sure to cap creams nice and tight so they don't dry out over time. This is one of their newest launches, and this is the Spectral Shine Radiance Balm in the shade Mirrored Moonlight, and it is their highlighter. I just think this is like one of the coolest textures. I've used my fingers. I'm going to use a little brush today. I'm going to use something with somewhat stiff bristles, and I'm going to swirl. And I sort of made the mistake of like bouncing my fingers in the product, which kind of like broke it up weirdly, and I had to like kind of smush it back together and like swirl it around again. So I highly recommend, like, you have to be somewhat gentle with it. You don't want to damage the product. You see how there's those kind of like little holes. It's very well loved. So I'm just going to build this up a little bit with a brush, but you can see it gives the skin such a pretty like candlelit glow. it never looks harsh or, you know, like obviously highlighter, which is like my ideal highlighter. I want something that looks very natural. The other nice thing about this in particular, compared to a lot of other highlighters I've used, is it's like a cream but a powder at the same time. It really has this kind of powdery finish, so you get the kind of the depth of a cream, but it doesn't feel tacky on your cheeks. It has this really nice powdery finish, and it's kind of one of those things you almost just forget that you have it on, because again, something that Phytosurgence has nailed with their formulas is like very thin textures, but with a lot of pigment payoff and just really easy to apply. So I'm just going to take my blush brush that I had and just very lightly kind of feather whatever is left over on my brush back into that highlight to really get a good merge of the two. But look at that. It's so beautiful. Like, I love how their products wear. I'm going to put on the rest of my makeup and I'll be right back. Okay, so here is the final full face. I hope that this has been a really informative little kind of mini haul of sorts. I really love this company. I'm excited to watch them continue to grow. I'm excited to see what else they'll launch. I selfishly am hoping for some skin products like a concealer type product. I would love to see like a liquid liner, maybe a couple different shades. I think that would be really, really cool. And I just know that anything that they create, the formula is going to be really unique and enjoyable to use. So I think it's an awesome brand. If you're interested in supporting an Asian-owned brand, LGBTQ plus friendly Canadian brand, so it really kind of ticks off a lot of boxes. And also I love that, kind of like I mentioned earlier, in their campaigns and seemingly in everything that they do, they strive to be really inclusive with their use of models for their swatches and things like that. So I think it's a really awesome brand. It's really pretty affordable, and especially when you consider the payoff of the products and the way that they wear, I think it's fantastic. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, please make sure to give it a like. Maybe subscribe to my channel. That way I can continue bringing you this type of content. I love what I do. I love getting to play with makeup, and I love that so many of you love watching my videos of me playing with makeup. It's so much fun. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye.